I want to talk about Gaza today because it's important. There's more reports in the press coming out. And obviously, you'll remember that 7 aid workers were killed in an Israeli strike in Gaza earlier this year. And it's been claimed that Israel targeted these workers, including 3 British aid workers, John Chapman, James Henderson, and James Kirby. But the UK is still supplying military aid to Israel. What's your take on this, Dirk?
Yeah, that is one of the first instances. I wasn't very much into this Israel issue because you can get burnt fingers very easily. But one of the things that really got me running was when a guy who was called Abu Gaza, he was in a wheelchair and had his 2 legs amputated. And he was always running around in Gaza in his wheelchair with a Palestinian flag. And he was shot by a sniper. And then I thought this is abysmal. And then I got a reply from a guy in Germany who was on the Israeli side and said, there's an investigation going on. Wait for the investigation. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And I waited. And then another Israeli friend told me these investigations never lead anywhere. There's never anybody who's convicted or so. And there is an investigation going on now regarding this case of the 7 people there, because there were British and I also think American people involved in that. And that is the guy who was responsible for that has been militarily. He lost his command, they say, and so they had to do something about it. The whole thing, but there were so many instances where you could see that it was kind of we can do what we want attitude. It was when food was handed out and people were shot there. They are attracted by food, you could say, and then they were just killed. I remember the interview on Sky when the former Lieberman, I think it's the former president, and formerly he was also Minister of Education. That's how I got to know him. He said he compared the whole situation to Dresden. He said, you British bombed Dresden, and we do the same with Gaza now. And then the moderator felt uneasy about that, which goes as a credit to the British population. They are not happy about that. And then the guy went berserk. The former president went berserk and said, "You don't have to lecture us on anything there." So this is all going into that direction. It is something like the whole thing with the whole attitude there is that. Nobody, they have a big apparatus behind them that makes sure that it took a while for the world to recognize, the Western world to recognize that they should be protesting. But you can see that more than 140 countries, meanwhile, have accepted Palestine as a state in the United Nations. So there's a big divide between the Western world and the rest of the world in this question. There are many people in the global South, and they don't go along with this at all. But we do, and it has to do with because the Holocaust committed by the Germans against the Jews is kind of ingrained into the Western mind. It is kind of like the core event, you could call it, from which everything is interpreted, and this doesn't help in this situation, where you have crimes committed, and then they always say, okay, 7th October and so on. But the whole thing there is so out of hand. And if we go on talking, I mean, in Germany, our foreign minister talks about moral foreign policy. And that means increasing the amount of weapons sent to Israel tenfold. It's now 326 million or so. It was 30 before October 7th. And this is considered moral foreign policy, but you run into something which is a slaughterhouse, and we shouldn't. It should be stopped. It's like a Ukraine war. It should be stopped. People shouldn't die this way for nothing, really. These are civilians. 3/4 of the deaths are civilians. So it's awful, and it will be a stain on the Western image for the time to come. That will be with me until I go into my grave. It's people in the rest of the world will say, when we talk about human rights, they will say Gaza and Guantanamo.
Critically analyzing global affairs, the Muckrakers on today's News Talk, TNT.